we can start turning on the genes that we want to turn on and then turn off the genes that we don't want expressing. I think it's absolutely fascinating.
Hey, Zesties! Welcome to another episode of the Gleeful Talkshow, where we share zesty stories to cultivate the happiness and hero within. Today, we are going to talk about nutrition, more specifically, those that give us high chances of getting pregnant, like nutrigenomics, the mommy maker method, and topics around it. So, if this is up your alley, stay tuned as our guest, who is a licensed dietitian for over 28 years, certified functional nutritionist, author, and creator of the mommy maker method, will share her knowledge and tips for today's episode. Without further ado, please welcome Annette Presley. Hi, Annette. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thank you for being on the show. So I'm curious, before we go to the mommy maker method, what inspired you to take the path of being a fertility nutrition specialist?
I actually had infertility myself for a brief amount of time because quite honestly, I just couldn't hack it. So we quit trying for a few years. But I actually did end up having a couple of kids and they're in their 20s now. And so I didn't really think about infertility after that because nobody talks about it. And I thought I was the only one. And then I was scrolling Facebook a couple of years ago and someone had posted about their second failed IVF or in vitro fertilization attempt. And I read the comments and the number of women who responded with similar stories just absolutely floored me. I had no idea that so many women suffered from that. And so naturally it just tugged on my heartstrings and I just fell on the floor and I cried. And I just thought we have to do something about this. So that's kind of how I got into it.
And when you mentioned about initially you suffered infertility, so is there like a infertility that's curable and not curable?
I think, yeah, if you have all of like your organs are intact, it's generally curable. If the man doesn't have sperm, if he's not producing sperm, I can't fix that because of some kind of like inflammation or something like that happening in the body. Or, maybe if you correct things like smoking, things like that, maybe sperm would come back. So it just kind of all depends, if they're capable of producing sperm or not. And then, if you have your uterus and your ovaries and they're functioning, then you should be able to get pregnant.
All right. So tell us more about this mommy maker method.
Yeah. So it's a 5-step process and it basically accomplishes 2 goals. So what I found out is that infertility is on the rise and it's not anyone's fault. So, it's not the man or the woman are not to blame. What's going on is our environment is kind of throwing toxins out at us. And so what we have to do is we have to stop those toxins that we can stop and then shield the body from the toxins that we can't stop. Because unfortunately, we can't stop all of them. And so with the mommy maker method, it actually spells mommy. So
Okay. So it's like an acronym.
yeah, exactly. And so the first M is for minimizing toxic exposure. So that's the first step. The second step is we want to optimize nutrition and genetic expression. And so we can actually change the way our genes express. So we can turn on genes that express for health or making a baby, and we can turn off genes that express for disease or genes that make it harder for us to have a baby. So that's kind of pretty cool. And so that's the second step. And then third, we want to maximize mental and spiritual well-being. And 4, make yourself a priority. And then number 5, you want to say yes to rest. So you put all of those together along with all the testing I do, and it basically turns on the right genes, corrects any nutritional deficiencies, and basically we stop the toxins that we can stop, and then we shield the body from the toxins we can't stop.
All right. So I'm curious, what are the toxins perhaps that we can't stop?
Well, so in the environment, we have like pesticides and all of these different plastics. And so a lot of those things are just in the environment and there's nothing we can do about it. And
Ah.
so we can minimize our exposures to some of those things, but sometimes we can't. So we could eat organic food and that would minimize our exposure to some of the pesticides, but they're still in the air and the wind will blow them around. And so we're still going to have some access to those.
And so, what is the role of nutrigenomics and how does this impact our genetic expression?
Yeah. So nutrigenomics is kind of how the food impacts your genes and then how genes respond to food or how they make you respond to food. And so it's a really interesting science and it's fairly new, but we can actually, just by eating certain foods or taking certain supplements, we can start turning on the genes that we want to turn on and then turn off the genes that we don't want expressing. I think it's absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, it is. And actually, this is my first time hearing it. And that's why I couldn't even
I
articulate
know
it properly. So,
it's a big sciencey word.
yeah, it's very sciencey word. So, could you give us an example of, let's say, what food perhaps that would be able to turn on a specific gene?
So liver is probably one of the best foods. Liver
Liver,
has, yeah, liver.
liver like chicken liver?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah, chicken or beef liver. And it's because liver has so many nutrients in it. So it has like zinc and copper and the B vitamins, vitamin A, D, vitamin K2. So it has a lot of minerals and fat soluble vitamins. And I found that most people have deficiencies in either the fat soluble vitamins like A, D, E, or K2, or minerals like copper, iodine, zinc, magnesium, those kinds of things. And so liver is like nature's multivitamin. It has everything in it.
oh, oh, okay. So, because I'm originally from the Philippines and I immigrated here in Australia, and we do eat liver and other internal
Uh-huh.
organs of animals. But I found that the Western culture it's not common, or it's kind of like considered, like taboo or not so, I'd say, clean.
Yeah. So yeah, that all happened back in the 1980s because I grew up eating liver once a week. That was like the standard in America until we decided that fat was bad, especially saturated fat and cholesterol. So liver is very high in cholesterol. And so once we got on that, thinking that cholesterol was bad for us, which it isn't, we kind of took liver out of the diet and other organs as well. So all the organs are great foods. And those are probably, we really need to be eating more of them, not
Oh,
less.
wow, that's
Yeah.
that's very interesting. Oh, that's good then, because back in the Philippines, we used to eat intestines, like chicken
Yeah.
intestines. But then,
Hmm.
when I moved abroad here and Dubai, I also was in Dubai before, so it's not really that common, or it's regarded as unclean. So yeah,
Yeah. Pretty
but
much everything we're being taught about nutrition is wrong.
that's very interesting. And yeah, that's good that you mentioned that few people right now knows about nutrigenomics, and it's good that you're able to educate us about this. What do you think, are intestines good?
Yes. Yes.
Oh.
Intestines, heart, kidney, spleen. Yeah. All the organs are fabulous. Brain, ovaries, testicles. You
Yeah.
name.
In the Philippines, we have even like, yeah, the cow testicles or something, and even the tongue.
Oh, yep. The tongue. Yep.
We call it lengua. So yeah, it's fascinating. So, and how do we turn on or off the genes that block baby making?
Yeah. So one of the best ways to turn off genes is to avoid vegetable oils like soy, corn, cottonseed, canola, grapeseed, which is, people think that's really healthy. It's not. Sunflower and safflower oils. So basically, all the oils you find in processed foods actually cause a lot of inflammation in the body. And so they turn on the genes that express for disease.
Oh, and how about olive oil?
Yeah. So olive oil is good, avocado, but really it's the animal fats that are the best. So butter,
Oh,
ghee, lard, beef tallow, duck fat, goose fat, all of those things are
oh,
actually
wow.
even better.
It's amazing because, yeah, we are taught that those fatty oils and stuff are bad for us. And then you also mentioned something about cholesterol, which is actually good. So could you elaborate on that?
Yeah. So back in the 1960s, 70s, there was a researcher named Ansel Keys, and he actually invented the K rations for like the military. It's like food that's freeze dried food. And anyway, he came up with this theory that cholesterol and saturated fat in the diet raise blood cholesterol, which causes heart disease. And when he first presented that, he was pretty much laughed at by the doctors. They thought that was ridiculous, which it is. But anyway, so he was kind of a proud man and he was determined to prove that he was right. So he did this 7-country study where he took 7 countries and plotted on a graph the amount of fat available for consumption in those countries, and then the number of deaths from heart disease. And he was able to show a perfect line so that the more fat available for consumption, the more deaths they had from heart disease. And so it seemed like proof positive. However, when he did this study, data was available for 22 countries. And if you put all 22 countries on his graph, there was no correlations. And had he picked a different set of 7 countries, he could have shown the exact opposite, that the more fat available for consumption, the fewer deaths from heart disease. So he basically designed the study to prove what he wanted to prove, which is not how you're supposed to conduct a study.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so
Wow.
that's the foundation of everything we believe on fat and cholesterol. But if we really look at it from, let's just forget the science for a minute and look at history. We've been eating animal foods for a lot longer than we've been eating plant foods. And so it doesn't really make sense that we've eaten these foods for tens of thousands of years and then all of a sudden, 100 years ago, they start killing us. I mean, it really doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, that's eye-opening for a lot of people, I guess, because we've been taught that way. So would that mean that cholesterol isn't really correlated to heart disease?
No.
And so it could just like other sources that could lead to the heart disease, but not.
Yes. Yeah. So calcium is one of those. Calcium actually can deposit in arteries. And so that's the
Oh,
real problem. And the problem there is that we're not eating enough vitamin K2. And so vitamin K2 is kind of like a bow that shoots the calcium arrow into bones. And it keeps calcium out of arteries and soft tissues like joints. And so when we take a lot of vitamin D supplements or calcium supplements, which lots of people do, they're not taking the K2 with it. And so there's no aiming of that calcium where we want it to go. And so a lot of it deposits in arteries and soft tissues instead. And so that's harming a lot of people. And so cholesterol only harms us when it's oxidized. And it becomes oxidized when we eat a lot of sugar or vegetable oils. So the saturated fats actually protect cholesterol from becoming oxidized.
the
The
saturated,
saturated fats, yeah. The
which is
bad
supposedly
fats.
the bad fat, right? So
Exactly.
okay, wow. What an eye-opening session. So,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, and cholesterol in the diet also protects it. So eating eggs and liver is good for you.
Oh, okay. Okay, wow. Okay, I was caught off guard because, like although this is about getting pregnant and whatnot, but about these general notions that we had in the past, it's quite
Mhm.
fantastic to know that it's actually not what it is. And with nutrition, what would be your recommended daily diet with people who wanted to get pregnant?
Yeah, so I recommend an animal-based diet, which is animal foods, honey, and fruit. And you can eat vegetables if you want, but they're not necessary. And they contain a lot of toxins, actually. So if you have things like autoimmune disease, like Hashimoto's, which a lot of women struggling to get pregnant have.
Hashimoto?
Yeah, Hashimoto's, it's a thyroid autoimmune disorder. And so the vegetables actually contain toxins and that can wreak havoc on your body, especially when you've got an autoimmune issue going on. So the animal foods are actually much easier to digest. And I know we're told, that the opposite of that. But the animal foods don't contain toxins like the plants do. So animals have teeth and they can run away. Plants can't go anywhere. So they develop toxins to prevent people from eating them or other animals because they don't like to be eaten.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And, especially people are eating a lot of raw vegetables and juicing them.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so,
I do that.
yeah, that's probably not a good idea.
Otherwise, I really just need to get those expensive organic stuff, which could still have potential toxins because
Right.
fruits doesn't want to be eaten. So with that diet that you mentioned, so what other things that women who like to get pregnant would do, like in terms of maybe exercise, what types of breathing exercises or anything that you'd like to recommend?
Yes, breathing is always fabulous because a lot of us, myself included, we tend not to breathe or we breathe really shallow, because we just get busy and we forget.
Yeah, yeah, because like it's
Yeah,
an everyday thing, right?
exactly. And we kind of breathe naturally because if we didn't, we'd die, and so we tend not to think about it. But we really need those deep breaths because they help us to relax and it's really good for our blood flow. So breathing is really great. So things like yoga and Pilates are really good. You don't have to do a whole lot of aerobic activity. Like you don't have to work out for an hour in the gym every day, but strength training is really good, like 20 minutes, 2 to 3 times a week. The stronger you are, the better your health you're going to be in. And flexibility is really good to work on. So those are my
Flexibility.
favorite. Yeah, flexibility is really important. And we tend to forget about that one a lot too.
Yeah,
But strength and
yeah.
flexibility are the most important exercises, really.
And what about in terms of the age? So is there like a change in nutrition? Let's say, for example, for someone who wanted to be a mom like 28 or for someone who is at 35, let's say.
Yeah, so the nutrition doesn't really change a whole lot. So it's just really important to eat the nutrient dense foods, which are really the animal foods are the most nutrient dense, particularly the organs. But even the like beef has a lot of zinc and CoQ10 and different nutrients that are hard to get elsewhere. And so that's really important. And so the nutrients don't really change. And as long as you have a period every month or at least every other month, you should be able to get pregnant. So regardless of what your age, it's just that as you age, your eggs tend to not be quite as healthy. And so that you just have to pay extra attention. So while a younger person might be able to get away with eating some junk food more often, an older person would really need to watch it carefully.
All right. If ever you have someone who comes up to you and maybe like a vegan or
Mhm.
vegetarian, I don't know if you had experiences or if you'd like to share, how would that go?
Well, so I insist that people eat at least egg yolks. And the reason is so one of the things I do is DNA testing so we can kind of see what your genes are doing. And one of the things I look at is vitamin A. So a lot of people genetically cannot convert beta carotene to vitamin A. And beta carotene is found in plant foods and vitamin A is found in animal foods. And so if you're vegan and you have this genetic mutation, it doesn't matter how many plants you eat, you're not going to get enough vitamin A. And if you don't get enough vitamin A, you're not going to get pregnant. So you have to have those fat soluble vitamins. So that's why I insist they at least eat eggs and butter.
Ah, and would you also recommend like maybe if they don't want to get it, like maybe like supplements?
Yeah, they can do
So-
supplements. It's not going to be as healthy for the baby. So vegan is actually not a healthy diet for anyone under the age of 25 because the brain hasn't fully developed and you really need those fat soluble nutrients. And so I don't think it's healthy for anyone under 25 or any woman trying to get pregnant or who is pregnant or is nursing.
Oh, wow. Okay. Because the world is
I
turning.
know. I know.
So I'm glad I ate a lot of intestines when I was before 25. So
Yes.
yeah, that was one of my favorite foods. We have like a intestine barbecue back in my hometown. So it was really, really good.
So iodine is also a nutrient that most people ignore, but iodine deficiency is one of the main contributors to miscarriages and inability to get pregnant. And so it's really important to make sure your iodine intake is good. And you can test for that with an iodine loading test. So they give you 50 milligrams of iodine, and then you collect your urine for 24 hours, and that will give you like a percent result. And so anything under 90% is low. So you really want to get that up before you get pregnant, because not only will it help you get pregnant and stay pregnant, it actually makes your baby smarter and less likely to have ADHD, autism, allergies, asthma, and all that.
Oh, now it's getting interesting as well because you mentioned about the nutrition would affect the baby, right?
Right.
So, are there foods that pregnant women should avoid or should take in so that, the baby will not have those ADHD or the deformities or something like that?
Yeah. So like seaweed is really good, seafood. The only issue, of course, is mercury. I mean,
Ah,
we're so polluted. So you just have to watch the mercury content of everything. But you need adequate selenium. And so like Brazil nuts have selenium, but also liver and, all the organs in animal food. So it's just good to make sure you're getting plenty of those so you get enough selenium, because that works with iodine. And some people, the problem with iodine too is we have so many toxins that bind to all the receptors in the body that normally bind to iodine. So in fact, every cell in our body has iodine receptors, and it's the second highest concentration of iodine in the body is the ovaries. So, that's why it's a huge getting pregnant nutrient. The other things in the environment, like bromide, which is found in furniture and cars and carpet, and pretty much it's everywhere. And chlorine and fluoride also interfere with iodine absorption. And so we have so many of those around. And a lot of the toxins in the environment, like pesticides, have one of those in them. And so it interferes with iodine. And so some people need to take a supplement, but they absolutely should work with a qualified healthcare practitioner who knows about iodine in order to do that.
And with the home products, like the bathroom sprays, like your toilet,
Yeah.
and then that could affect if someone inhales it.
Yes. Yeah. And even dryer sheets, those are really toxic. These sheets of paper that you put in your dryer to soften the clothes or make them smell good. Those are,
Okay. Like fabric softeners or something like, yeah. Oh,
yeah, very toxic.
gosh. Yeah.
And nail polish too. So,
Oh, wow. So many things, right? So many things because of the world today, a lot of things getting complicated.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And so if anyone wants to get in touch with you, like your program, your mommy maker method, how will they reach you and how long would that program be?
So it's a 6-month program, and I usually talk to the person first. I like to do a free consultation just to make sure I can help them and that we're a good fit for working together. But they can go to getpregnanteasier.com and set up an appointment, and then we'll talk about it. And whether they work with me or not, I'm going to give them some really fabulous advice that will help them on their journey trying to get pregnant. And they can follow me on Instagram and Facebook and Pinterest at The Mommy Maker.
Okay, great. And then consultation remotely is also good. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I actually only work remotely. So
That's great. So our Zesties can find you. And so before we close off, just a fun question. So,
yes.
okay, are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Just a fun question. So, would you rather explore space or the ocean?
Oh, the ocean for sure.
Oh,
I love water. So I grew up in Southern California and we had a beach, and I love swimming in deep water. And yeah, I would just love that. I would love to be a mermaid.
no, wow.
So I could swim underwater without having to hold my breath.
Oh, okay. Wow. That was a very good and fruitful conversation. Thank you so much, Annette, for sharing your knowledge. And once again, please invite our Zesty where to find you.
So getpregnantplan.com is my website. And then getpregnanteasier.com is where you can set up an appointment. And then I'm on Instagram, Facebook, and Pinterest at The Mommy Maker.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for being the show, Annette.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. This is so much fun.